the Daily Wire's first official comedy, Lady Ballers. This is the, I believe, fifth movie that the Daily Wire has produced, with a sixth one coming next year with Snow White and the Evil Queen. And if you saw my reviews of the ones they did last year, you know that I thought both that Shut In, The Hyperions, and Terror on the Prairie were all pretty good movies. And I have not seen Run, Hide, Fight yet, but I am going to be watching that probably within the next couple days, because I'm planning to do a ranking of all of these, and then there'll be an updated one when Snow White comes out next year. And I just did a video on this movie yesterday talking about how it's pissing the people off that it was trying to piss off, and it's extremely funny. But I didn't get to talk about I didn't make the video yesterday, I made it 2 days ago. But, in any case, I finally got to watch the movie today. And how was it? Well, it's pretty good. No, I'm serious. It's actually a really well-made film. And I'm going to preface this right off the bat here. It's not just good because of the subject matter. Now, don't get me wrong, the subject matter is the reason I watched this in the first place, because I knew it was going to tear into something that shouldn't even be a fucking debate, but is because the world has gone to hell. But it still looked like it was going to be a pretty fun movie. In my estimation of what I would give it, I kind of lowballed it just a bit because I was worried it was going to try a little too hard. And there are a couple times where there's lines that are like, okay, you're trying a bit too hard here, but it wasn't anything too distracting. And I'm going to say this is one of the funniest comedies that I've watched in the last several years. Now, let me preface this. That's not a high bar to clear. So many comedies nowadays are not funny because they work too hard to try to appease everybody, and there's this flawed viewpoint of comedy that all comedy is based in misery. That's technically not true, but if you try to appease everybody and try not to piss anybody off, you try your damnedest to not be quote-unquote canceled, then your comedy is pointless. Now, there's an episode of Duckman, the animated show from the 90s, 80s, I don't remember when that show was produced, but the entire point of that episode was there was a comedian that tried to do, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember what the word I'm looking for is, but it's just comedy that's trying not to piss anybody off. I cannot remember the word for some reason, but you know what I mean. It's like the safest comedy you can try to make, and it's obviously a failure, but then the villain of the movie, or of the show, one of them at least, makes it so that people enjoy that comedy, and then Duckman has a big speech about the entire nature of comedy, that it's supposed to be an escape from the misery. Like, if you make fun of somebody, the entire point of the joke is not you're laughing at people, is that you're trying to have fun with it. That's something I used to appreciate comedians did, especially ones like Jeff Dunham, who intentionally pissed people off, made jokes of people, made fun of people, but they always went along with it because it was funny. The only comedy that I find offensive is one that is not funny, and that's why a lot of comedians aren't funny. I mentioned this in the last video, that the last couple of specials that I've watched of comedians that I like Gabriel Iglesias and Jim Gaffigan, they weren't funny, because Gabriel Iglesias was all jokes about COVID, and then I didn't see much of the Jim Gaffigan special, but from what I saw, it was all either COVID jokes or diarrhea jokes. That's where we're at with comedy. What my favorite thing about this movie is that it was no holds barred and no fucks given. That's the kind of comedy I want. I don't want comedy that tries their damnedest to avoid controversy. Because you know why? I don't care about shit being controversial. Hell, if I did, I wouldn't have made so many videos bashing the Percy Jackson series, or the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, or the Little Mermaid reboot. If I didn't want to avoid controversy, I wouldn't be on the internet. Or if I wanted to avoid controversy, I wouldn't be on the internet. So, I think you get what I'm talking about here. And even the movie itself, even putting politics aside, it's still pretty funny. There are like I said, there's a couple of times where the jokes try too hard, but most of the jokes work, and hell, a lot of the jokes that work aren't even ones that are specifically about the subject matter. They're just well-written interactions between the characters. And all of the characters that you're supposed to like are very likable, and the characters you're supposed to hate are purposely insufferable. And when you can write a character that's purposely insufferable without making you want to rip your own ears off, it works. Compare that to the 2019 Lion King, where Zazu's supposed to be annoying to the other characters, but not to the audience. I wanted to gouge my eyes out and rip off my ears watching and listening to John Oliver do just have some of the worst dialogue. I don't think John Oliver's another comedian that I don't find very funny anymore. Because, again, it's all crappy political jokes, it's all Trump jokes, it's all climate change jokes or shit like that. So I don't find that stuff funny. And there's of course a lot of Daily Wire people that are in this movie. Even people that work for, like Ben Shapiro has a cameo as a referee, and the two newscasters are played by Michael Knowles and Brett Cooper, who, by the way, if you don't remember, is playing Snow White next year, the Daily Wire Snow White next year. There's a brief cameo by Candace Owens that I'll get to later, and there's Matt Walsh is in this, Jeremy Boring, I think that's how you say his name, I'm not sure, though that's kind of an unfortunate last name. He directed, wrote, and starred in this movie, and he's also directing the Pendragon Cycle, which comes out next year. There's one other, and there's a couple other cameos that were in this. Ted Cruz is in this. I'm not really sure why they had him cameo in it, but it's fine. Whatever. My favorite cameo in this by far was when they're doing a bunch of other sports, because they don't just do basketball in this. They don't just invade basketball. They go do a bunch of other sports. Like, one of them goes and does tennis, one of them does track and field, one of them does, and then one of them does swimming, and there's a brief cameo by Riley Gaines, which I thought was pretty damn awesome. So, and again, there was a point I was going to make, but I just kind of lost it, but whatever. You get what I mean. So, and I will say that even though these aren't seasoned actors, like a lot of these people, like I don't think Shapiro has any acting experience, Boring definitely doesn't have any acting experience. I hope I'm saying that right, because if I'm calling him Jeremy Boring, and that's not how you say his last name, I'm gonna feel bad about that. But he doesn't have any acting experience, and it's shown because it says introducing him, so this is his first acting experience, and he does very well in the lead role. There's some reporter that's, like, around him a lot, and she's kind of weird, but I thought the actress did pretty good. His wife is a decent actress. She's one of the people that has acting experience in this. She's apparently hasn't been in a ton, but she did pretty well in this role. And like I said, Matt Walsh plays his ex-wife, like is Boring's ex-wife. Rob is the coach's name. Rob's ex-wife is played by Matt Walsh. And there's a twist at the end about his character that I will get into in a little bit. But I want to say that, again, this isn't just political fodder. I will say that, because there's actually a really good story behind this, and the last 20 minutes of this movie really show that there was more behind this movie than just, let's make fun of this because it's an easy target. This is something we can get a lot of jokes out of, and you know what the sad thing is that a lot of the jokes made about this subject matter, they're barely jokes because they're real. And if you know what I mean, like I mentioned the Riley Gaines cameo, that's exactly what happened in real life. Or one of them becomes like some influencer on Instagram, very similar to Dylan Mulvaney, and they even posted that it's like, oh yeah, our parody of Dylan Mulvaney is barely a parody. And that's exactly the point. And it's like, it's not even the movie's own fault that those are barely jokes, because there's no way to get around that. And again, like I said a few times, a couple of these jokes try a little too hard, like they're a little too on the nose, but most of the jokes work perfectly fine. And like I said before, a lot of the jokes that work don't even involve the subject matter. They're just well-written jokes and good interactions between these characters. All these characters have great chemistry with each other. All the actors do a phenomenal job convincing me that they're old teammates, they're friends. They do a very good job of convincing me of that. Now, what I want to talk about is the last 20 minutes or so about this movie. Side note, this movie was kind of a pain in the ass to watch because, not from the movie's own volition, because this is a movie that's 1 hour 50 minutes long. And it took me probably 3 hours to watch it due to my shitty internet. So it's not the movie's fault, but this was kind of a pain in the ass to watch. And especially the last 20 minutes, it would stop to buffer like every 3 minutes, and it's not the movie, and I don't think it was the site or the app, I just think it was just my crappy internet, but you don't care about that. The last 20 minutes of this movie shows how much love was put into this movie, how much effort was put into this movie, as opposed to just put out some political commentary because it's popular. That's not what they did. One of my favorite jokes in this movie was one of the guys, by the end, is like, you know what, I feel like a woman. This is who I really am. And the coach finally gives him some tough love that he and his parents refused to do. He's like, we should have just given you tough love. We tried to avoid hurting your feelings, and we shouldn't have done that. And the guy's like, so you're telling me I'm not a woman? And the coach emphasizes this point by hitting him in the testicles. I had to pause the movie. I was laughing so hard at that joke. Because especially since I didn't see it coming. And then they officially make substitutions because there's another team that they're playing in this tournament that substituted the actual girls who were supposed to play with dudes who look like they belong in the NBA. Now, then they decide to make substitutions after halftime, and it's Rob's daughter and her little team who are like 10 years old, and the guys on the other team decide to basically let them and even help them win. Like, there's even guys like picking them up so they can dunk the ball, and they're playing defense like they're almost, at first they're almost pretending to play defense, like they're doing this, but they're like 10 feet from them, and they're just kind of doing this. It's pretty damn funny, and it's a really nice scene. Although I will say there was a weird error here with the scoreboard, because after the girls had scored at least 10 or so points, the scoreboard was still saying 55-0. And then at the end of the game, when everybody's celebrating, you can see the scoreboard still says 55-0 in the third quarter. So they apparently didn't bother to update the scoreboard during the entire shoot, which is weird. And then at the end of the movie is the big twist that Chris, Matt Walsh's character, was just Matt Walsh in disguise and was basically trying to trigger this whole message to get it across to everybody how stupid this is. And he's in the car with Candace Owens, and it's basically, he almost mentions like this is an extension of his documentary to her, and it's pretty damn funny, especially since I did not see that coming in the slightest. I assume they just casted him because, again, he's a Daily Wire regular, so they could have gotten him no problem. They didn't need to hire some other actor. They just pulled him onto set for a few days. And though I will say, apparently a lot of extras walked off the movie when they found out the subject matter, which I find so damn funny, because that just shows how easy it is to piss these people off. Like, they won't even be paid to be in a background of a couple of shots for a movie like this, which is pretty damn funny. And I already talked about the reviews and everything, so I'm not gonna mention that here. But yeah, this was definitely a very fun comedy. And again, it's not even just because of the political satire. It's just a well-made movie. The directing's good, the writing's good, the acting's good, and especially the ending was very well done and very well handled. And I like how they treated the subject matter, because this is such a stupid thing to have happened in our society. And they do everything in their power to show how dumb it is. And people still didn't get the fucking message because they are so hell-bent to make sure that people think this is transphobic. And apparently it's not working. Because not only was this the biggest launch in Daily Wire history so far, I have a feeling Snow White will probably be bigger, but technically that's Ben Key, so it doesn't really count, but whatever. So, as compared to the other three, this one might be the best one. It's up there with the Hyperions, because the Hyperions, if you all remember, saw that review, it was really good. And that one does, and especially that movie does kind of hold a special place for me, especially since that was back when I had very few subscribers, and even the cinematographer for that movie ended up seeing my review of it and actually liked it and even commented on the video, so that was pretty cool. This movie is just a hell of a lot of fun. I definitely recommend you check it out, and a couple of jokes that were trying too hard don't bring this movie down for me, and that one weird error with the scoreboard, I'm not even sure how many people would have noticed, but considering I've trained myself to notice mistakes like that, I couldn't avoid it. So I'm actually going to give Lady Ballers an A+. I highly recommend this movie, especially if you're a fan of The Daily Wire. You'll definitely enjoy this. So that's all I got, and I will see you all next time. Bye.